So we got to talk about this anonymous op-ed in the New York Times, and also Cory Booker making an absolute spectacle and fool of himself by breaking the Senate rules to release papers that he hopes will embarrass Brett Kavanaugh. And I just want to say, I am so glad that the rule of law and decency are being protected by chuckleheads like Cory Booker, an anonymous, unelected New York Times guy, who are breaking the rule of law and the rules of decency in order to protect the rule of law and the rule of decency. I mean, that's basically what's going on. And before you let any of this get into your head, because I've been telling you all week, America is in the grip of a non-crisis. This is like not a crisis. It's not a constitutional crisis. It's not a political crisis, not any kind of a crisis. Everything is going fine. I just want to remind you of this. Let me read something to you about a book being published. In this stunning expose, the author pulls back the curtain on one of the most secretive White Houses in history. He reveals a callow, thin-skinned, arrogant president with messianic dreams of grandeur, supported by a cast of true believers, all of them united by right-wing politics and an amateurish understanding of executive leadership. Okay? This tells you how the president has taken more of a personal role in making foreign policy than any president since Richard Nixon, with disastrous results, and how his family are the real powers behind the White House throne. Now, I've changed that a little bit because it was actually about Obama. It's actually from a book called The Amateur by Edward Klein about Obama. It was a #1 New York Times bestseller, and it made no splash whatsoever because, of course, the CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, the New York Times didn't highlight it every single day. And that atmosphere of hysteria is what they are trying to create. That is the whole point of what they're doing. And of course, they're doing it right now when Brett Kavanaugh is up for confirmation to the Supreme Court, and they can't lay a glove on him. They can't get him. So they're just going out of their way to just make everything, oh my God, it's chaos, it's crisis, it's this, it's that. Not so much. I want to really take a look at this anonymous, unelected New York Times guy writing an op-ed in which he says, basically, don't worry, folks, unelected, anonymous New York Times guy is secretly running the country. Okay, this is what he says. And, it is well, let me talk about it. First, they asked the New York Times, they went to the editor of the New York Times, Blithering Prevarication III, and they said, why would you take this extraordinary step of publishing an anonymous op-ed attacking the president? And here's his response.
I'm having hysterics. I'm hysterical. I can't stop when I get like this. I can't stop. I'm hysterical.
I'm sorry. That's why they're doing it. They're hysterical. All right. So it says many of the senior officials. This is supposed to be a high-level administration official. We have no idea what that means. There are hundreds of people who would fall under that category. I would be willing to bet a certain amount of money that it's nobody we've ever heard of. They're talking today about Mike Pence in a pig's eye. In a pig's eye. It's not Pence, it's not Mattis, it's nobody like that. It's some minor functionary. Many of the senior officials in Trump's own administration are working diligently from within to frustrate parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations. I would know. I am one of them. Thanks, anonymous, unelected New York Times guy, for trying to overturn the will of the people to save America, sort of. I don't understand what you're doing. All right. But I believe this is happening. First of all, I believe this always happens. I believe this happens in every administration. There are people kind of, maneuvering behind the scenes. It's a complex machine, and there are people who think they're more important than they are. All right. And at Axios, where they actually have some decent reporting, it's not like the New York Times. At Axios, they have some sources. They say that other people called them up and said, there are a lot of us who sort of do things like this. Sort of Trump is, out of control, so we do all these things. So anyway, the guy goes on. To be clear, ours is not the popular resistance of the left. We want the administration to succeed and think that many of its policies have already made America safer and more prosperous. But we believe our first duty is to the country, and the president continues to act in a manner that is detrimental to the health of our republic. That is why many Trump appointees have vowed to do what we can to preserve our democratic institutions while thwarting Mr. Trump's more misguided impulses until he is out of office. The root of the problem is the president's immorality. So that's the first clue to who this is. Obviously, an all-seeing creature who can look into the president's soul and find that there is no guiding principle there. He says anyone who works with him. So that's the first clue. We're just trying to narrow this down. I think it's not a human being, right? It's an immortal creature. Anyone who works with him knows he is not moored to any discernible first principles that guide his decision-making. Although he was elected as a Republican, the president shows little affinity for ideals long espoused by conservatives, free minds, free markets, and free people. At best, he has invoked these ideals in scripted settings. At worst, he has attacked them outright. I bet this was written by somebody at the Times. I mean, obviously they had a source. I'm not accusing them of making it up, but I bet it was written by them. In addition to his mass marketing of the notion that the press is the enemy of the people, ooh, that was bad. President Trump's impulses are generally anti-trade and anti-democratic. Don't get me wrong. There are bright spots that the near ceaseless negative coverage of the administration fails to capture: effective deregulation, historic tax reform, a more robust military, and more. Let's just pause for a minute there to talk about the more in President Trump's first year. Let me quote Dan Henninger in the Wall Street Journal because he puts his name on what he writes. In President Trump's first year, those policies included the immigrant travel ban, news of which spread throughout the world. But with the help of a Republican Congress, his policies also included the reversal of the Obama era's multitudinous economic regulation, December, a 40% reduction in the corporate tax rate. In the 6 months between December and summer vacation, the U.S. economy achieved full employment. We now have a labor shortage. Unemployment rates for blacks and Hispanics at historic lows. After 8 years of suppression, a still powerful U.S. economy has been liberated. Here are 3 headlines from Tuesday's online journal. U.S. factory sector clocks strongest growth in 14 years. Consumer sentiment boosted by job optimism. U.S. auto sales maintain momentum for now. But thank heavens, anonymous, unelected New York Times guy is on the scene doing whatever the hell he thinks he's doing. So let us go on. He says, yes, all these successes, says anonymous, unelected New York Times guys, but these successes have come despite, not because of, the president's leadership style, which is impetuous, adversarial, petty, and ineffective. Well, obviously not ineffective, right, since all this stuff is happening, but okay. From the White House to executive branch departments and agencies, senior officials will privately admit that their daily disbelief at the commander-in-chief's comments and actions. Most are working to insulate their operations from his whims. Meetings with him veer off topic and off the rails. He engages in repetitive rants, and his impulsiveness results in half-baked, ill-informed, and occasionally reckless decisions that have to be walked back. There is no telling whether he might change his mind from 1 minute to the next, a top official complained to me recently. So how many of you are going like, what? President Trump says things and then changes his mind. What? You know, this is, they had to publish this anonymously because no one would come forward and say President Trump is difficult to deal with and has a big mouth. I mean, no one would say that except everyone. The entire country would say that. There's like 325 million people in this country. They all go, yeah, Trump doing a great job, but he's got a big mouth and he changes his mind a lot. All right, the erratic behavior would be more concerning. I mean, this is the stupidest editorial. The erratic behavior would be more concerning if it weren't for unsung heroes in and around the White House. Who do you think he's referring to? I bet I know who he's referring to. I think it's anonymous, unelected New York Times guy he's referring to. Some of his aides have been cast as villains by the media, but in private, they have gone to great lengths to keep bad decisions contained to the West Wing, though they are clearly not always successful. It may be cold comfort in this chaotic era. Is your life chaotic? My life is very smooth. I don't know, things are, the work is good, the stock market's up, everything is, ISIS is gone. Remember ISIS? Remember Obama's ISIS that he created by pulling out of Iraq too soon and not doing anything about the red line? Yeah, that's gone. I'm feeling pretty good. But okay, it's a chaotic era at anonymous, unelected New York Times guy's house. But Americans should know that there are adults in the room. We fully recognize what is happening, and we are trying to do what's right, even when Donald Trump won't. So don't worry, America. You elected a guy by legal means but he's not in charge. Do not worry. Our democracy is being protected by unelected, anonymous New York Times guy who is controlling everything behind the scenes. He says there's a two-track presidency. Take foreign policy in public and private. President Trump shows a preference for autocrats and dictators, but astute observers have noted that the rest of the administration is operating on another track, one where countries like Russia are called out for meddling and punished accordingly, and where allies around the world are engaged as peers rather than ridiculed as rivals. Think about that for a second. Who's punishing the Russians? The unelected anonymous New York Times guy or Trump? I mean, it's Trump doing it. You know, he's got to sign off on this stuff. This isn't the work of the so-called deep state, as if it's the work of the steady state. Oh, that's a new term for unelected anonymous people controlling our government instead of the people we send to control it. That's a new word. It's the steady state, not the deep state. So nothing to fear there, nothing to worry about there. Given the instability many witnessed, there were early whispers within the cabinet of invoking the 25th Amendment. The bigger concern is not what Mr. Trump has done to the presidency, but rather what we as a nation have allowed him to do to us. We have sunk low with him and allowed our discourse to be stripped of civility. And here's the giveaway. Senator John McCain put it best in his farewell letter. All Americans should heed his words and break free of the tribalism trap with the high aim of uniting through our shared values and love of this great nation. We may no longer have Senator McCain, but we will always, this is like the 15th day of his funeral in the New York Times, but we will always have as example a lodestar for restoring honor to public life and our national dialogue. Mr. Trump may fear such honorable men, but we should revere him. This is a giveaway, right? This is a giveaway. This is a guy. John McCain promised to repeal Obamacare, then voted not to repeal it for absurd reasons. He tried to limit free speech through McCain-Feingold. He was no one's idea of civil to anyone. Even at his funeral, they were talking about what a pain in the neck he was and how nasty he could be. What I'm trying to say about this is a meaningless op-ed that could have been written during the Obama administration but wouldn't have been published. That Edward Klein thing I read at the beginning tells you there were people then. Although Obama, unlike Trump, Obama surrounded himself with sycophants. Obama surrounded himself with oh, you want to silence people through the IRS? Okay. Oh, you want to use the Justice Department to spy on a rival campaign? Okay. Trump at least has people who push back, and they wouldn't be there if he didn't want them there. Look, I'm not pushing Trump. I think everything this guy is saying about the chaos in the White House, probably true. I think we all know that Trump is a chaotic character. In a lot of ways, Trump is shares some of Obama's bad features in that he is arrogant, narcissistic. Like Obama, he doesn't know what he doesn't know. Unlike Obama, he's following great policies that are doing great for the country. And then remember, when they talk about John McCain, BS. I call BS on this because there's still, last time I checked, only two parties in this country. There's still two parties in this country, and one of them is pulling off this clown show. Remember in Woodward's book, they called the Trump administration Crazy Town. They called it Crazy Town. Well, the RNC has put out this advertisement showing you what Crazy Town really looks like. This is Crazy Town ad. Run it.
Pages in length. What a...
Please get up in the face of some Congress people.
You see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd.
Those Republican leaders and President Trump don't give a...
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country.
Yeah. So that the problem is Trump. Trump is Crazy Town. The problem is Trump is he's in danger. Let's just go over to Kavanaugh, the Kavanaugh hearing, where Cory Booker, who is obviously running for president, an office he will never hold, not in my lifetime, not in your lifetime. He will never be president of the United States. But he is doing everything he can. So they're questioning Kavanaugh on Roe v. Wade. He says, yes, it's a precedent. It's a very strong precedent, but precedents can be overturned. They question him on guns. He has the answer on guns. He's just not giving them anything to tear them apart on. So thank heavens Thank heavens, if unelected anonymous New York Times guy is not running our government, Cory Booker is going to take matters into his own hands and protect the rule of decency and law by violating the rules of the Senate and the rules of decency and releasing private papers, classified papers from the Bush administration. And here he is telling you what a hero he is.
I knowingly violated the rules that were put forth, and I'm told that the committee confidential rules have knowing consequences. And so, sir, I come from a long line, as all of us do as Americans, and understand what that kind of civil disobedience is, and I understand the consequences. So I am right now, before your process is finished, I'm going to release the email about racial profiling, and I understand that the penalty comes with potential ousting from the Senate. And if Senator Cornyn believes that I violated Senate rules, I openly invite and accept the consequences of my team releasing that email right now. And I'm releasing it to expose that, number one, the emails that are being withheld from the public have nothing to do with national security, nothing to jeopardize the sanctity of those ideals that I hold dear. Instead, what I'm releasing this document right now to show, sir, is that we have a process here for a person, the highest office in the land, for a lifetime appointment. We're rushing through this before me and my colleagues can even read and digest the information.
Everything in that statement is untrue, especially it's not the highest office in the land. They're not rushing through it. They've got all the papers they need. They've had them for a long time. The papers that they are looking for are mostly classified. They're just trying to delay things, hoping that the midterms will turn everything around. Not going to happen. Mitch McConnell is very much in control of this process. And unless something explodes, this guy's going to be confirmed to the Supreme Court. And then they will have wasted their panic, because I think Trump is going to continue to be president, and there's going to be one of the older Supreme Court justices is going to kick, and then they're really going to have reason to panic.